Hey, Lalon Top 10s here. Ever wondered whether Japanese samurai could beat Spanish conquistadors, or the Roman legion could fight an ancient Chinese army, or if an army of war elephants would stand a chance against modern-day artillery? Some of those who would win battles that we love to wonder about do not have to be imagined. They can be played out in real life. Scattered throughout history, there are moments when fighters and armies that no one would ever have to expect it to be stared at each other down across a battlefield, and only once I walked out alive. Anyway, so here are the 10 who would win battles that played out in real life.
Hey guys.
A special guest, FJ Firebriar, is on the show today. Alright, we're going to do number 10 with the Japanese samurai versus the Spanish conquistadors. In 1582, a group of Spanish conquistadors found themselves face to face with an arm of band katana-wielding Ronin samurai. Those are also Japanese people. The Spaniards had been trading in the Philippines when Japanese pirates started raiding the countryside. Determined to protect their trade partners, 40 Spanish men moved out against the Japanese pirates. They spotted an uncommon ship, engaged in battle, and boarded the ship. And there they found a group of samurai waiting for them. The samurai welded cantinas backed up by Japanese pirates carrying muskets. The conquistadors had pikemen backed up by Spanish musketeers. For the first time in history, European pikes had clashed with Japanese steel. The winner, the Spanish people. The samurai did not even stand a chance. The conquistadors had stronger armor that they actually could not penetrate, and the musketeers backing them up were better shots, with more reliable weapons, like guns, for example. Not only did they beat the samurai, but the 40 men went off to fight off a fleet of 10 Japanese ships commanding thousands of men. When it ended, the Spanish leader Juan Pablo de Carrion threatened to bring over 600 more men if the Japanese did not lead the Philippines Olympios alone. The Japanese, without firing another shot, ran for their lives and stay as far away from the Philippines as they can. Number 9.
The elephants versus artillery. In 1825, a desperate Burmese commander struggling against the coach of the British Empire sent out his best hope against the British military, artillery, and army of war elephants.
The Burmese commander, Maha Bandula, had just managed to repel a British attack against his base in Danube. He had won a rare chance to turn the tide into war against an army with superior technology, and he took it. Bandula launched a counterattack led by his best soldiers, his cavalry, and 17 trained elephants. In ancient times, it would have been an unstoppable force, but now they were fighting against an army with guns and artillery in an ultimate battle of the old world against the new. The winner, the artillery people, won. The war elephants did not even make it to the enemy lines. As soon as they came close, the Burmese forces were blown away by a hail of rockets and shells. The elephants died before they could do any damage at all, and the cavalry could not even make it onto range. After the battle, the British attacked again, and this time Bandel and his men had to evacuate. The Burmese fought as hard and as long as they could, but war elephants were simply no match for British artillery. Alright, number 8.
Viking raiders versus Native American warriors.
When the first Vikings landed in the New World in the 10th century AD, they came face to face with a native tribe. It did not go out so well. The two sides scuffled and argued, and in short time, the world saw out battles between Vikings and Native Americans. Thorvald, the son of Eric the Red, got into fights with the locals in Newfoundland, who were likely Inuit people. One argument went sour, and Thorvald ended up kidnapping and killing 8 people. After that, the Vikings were clear enemies, and Native Americans became determined to chase them off. Well, unfortunately, Vikings, the Native Americans won. One-on-one, a Native American warrior probably would have lost to a Viking, but they were a bit smarter about it. They chased away Thorvald by taking a hide-covered boat down a ford, launching a volley of arrows at the Vikings. and then paddled away before they could strike back. The Vikings tried to take cover, but one of the arrows got Thorvald and killed him. After Thorvald died, the Native Americans managed to chase away the Vikings altogether. They built a camp and put a Viking town under siege, killing 2 of the Vikings within and chasing the rest of them away. Under the threat of constant harassment from Native Americans, the Vikings in time gave up and left the New World behind. Number 7.
Shaolin monks versus pirates.
In 1550, a motley crew of Portuguese, Chinese, and Japanese pirates using Western weapons found themselves against an unlikely opponent. A group of Shaolin warrior monks had stepped down from their monastery, and they were ready to pit their kung fu against the pirates' guns. Well, the pirates had been raging the Ming Kingdom for years, and desperate, the emperor called on a 1,000-year-old Shaolin monastery for help. The monks there were unparalleled masters of kung fu, but they were usually fought with staffs, while the pirates had advanced Portuguese guns and cannons. It was a battle of training against technology, whether sheer devotion to martial arts could overpower European weapons. The winner was the Shaolin monks, unfortunately. The monks fought the pirates in 4 battles and won 3 of them, but the best example is the Battle of Wingjiang. There were 120 monks faced against 120 different pirates, and the monks slaughtered their enemies. The pirates only managed to kill 4 monks before they were run down and massacred. Nearly every single one of the 120 pirates died, after being to death with iron staffs. Ouch! Number 6.
Tiger versus lion.
The ultimate battle for the king of the jungle has been fought more than once in nature. Tigers and lions will usually leave each other alone, but pitted before an audience, that can change. Both the Romans and the Indians had the big cats of the jungle fight before the eyes of a roaring crowd. The Romans did it first in the 1st century AD, and the Indians coupled them in the 19th century. In India, the fight was arranged by the Gaekwad of Baroda, who was so sure that the lion would win that he put down a 37,000 rupee bet. The winner, the Tigers. Both times the tiger won, and not even by a small margin. A witness to the Roman fight said that they not only did the tiger kill the lion, but she ripped it to shreds. And in India, the Gaekwad of Baroda had to pay up his 37,000 rupee bet. In nature, though, the animals would not have fought. The tiger attempted nothing of the sort while she lived in the depths of the forest. The Roman poet Martial wrote, after watching the fight, "But since she had been among us, she has acquired great ferocity." Or ferocity. Number 5.
The Mongolian horde versus European knights.
And yeah, that is true. After the Mongolian horde had swept through Asia, laying every person who stood in their way into the dust, they did not stop fighting. They pressed on to Europe, and there they went head-to-head with armored European knights. The Mongolians fought a whole war against the Europeans, but we will focus on the Battle of Langlitz in 1241. Here, 70,000 Mongolian warriors, under the command of the grandson of Genghis Khan, brought their army against the Kingdom of Poland in the Knights Templar. Polish knights with lances and broadswords went head-to-head with Mongolian horsemen and their bows and arrows. Unfortunately, Mongolians win, since their empire is so freaking huge. The Europeans were not ready for Mongolian tactics. The Mongolian horsemen would feign attacks and fake withdrawals, slowly draining their enemies with a barrage of arrows while keeping a safe distance from their swords. The knights, who were just used to charging and battering whoever was closest, did not know how to deal with it. The Mongolians had killed 25,000 people before the battle was over. They managed to fill 9 sacks full of ears torn off from their enemies, and they cut the Polish duke's head off and paraded it around on the tip of a spear. Number 4.
Warrior monks versus samurai.
Yes, in 1180, the Japanese prince Makohito, after a failed attempt to steal the throne, hid out in a Buddhist temple. An army of samurai warriors was after him, and he only had one hope to stave them off: the Temper's warrior monks. The samurai charged the temple and attacked. The monks had to fight them off. These monks were not just using staffs, they had bows, swords, and daggers. But they were up against a whole army of armed samurai. Unfortunately, the monks won. The warrior monks managed to hold them off, and the stories left behind about their victory are so incredible that it's hard to separate facts from fiction. Legend has it that one of the monks stopped an incoming arrow by slicing it in half in midair, while another single-handedly killed 26 samurai. Their victory, though, did not last. Even if they held off the first attack, the samurai came back, and this time they brought 10,000 soldiers with them. The monks did not stand a chance against that many people. The monastery was captured and burnt to the ground, and Prince Machahito was killed. Number 3.
Roman legionaries versus the Chinese army.
In 36 BC, a Roman legion went missing. There was some dispute about what actually happened to them, but according to one theory, they went past east and ended up finding themselves against the Mongolian Huns. They thought they had found refuge. Soon, though, the Chinese Han army was at their gates, and for the first time in history, Roman soldiers were face to face with Chinese warriors. The Chinese soldiers would have had an infantry and cavalry trained in the Chinese art of depiction and war. But the Roman legion had some of its shields. Chinese witnesses record seeing about 145 soldiers holding their, long rectangular shields close in an impenetrable tortoise formation. The Chinese won. The Han Chinese won, but it's not really a fair light. There were only 145 Romans there, and though they were backed up by the Mongolian army, the Chinese had them dramatically outnumbered. The Roman fighters, though, held their own well enough to make an incredible impression on the Chinese. When the battle was over, the Han Chinese enlisted every surviving legionnaire into the Han army. Number 2.
Viking raiders versus the Islamic Caliphate.
Viking riders wreaked hell upon Europe, but in 844 their attacks made it far enough south to come face to face with another type of enemy, the Islamic Umayyad Emirate. Islam at this time was spread across the world, and a huge part of modern-day Portugal and Spain were ruled by an Islamic dynasty. They were led by the Syrian Abu el-Rahman, who first got word that Vikings were coming when his men spotted nearly 100 Viking ships off the coast of Lisbon, which is the capital of Portugal. Viking radars were coming, and for the first time they were against the armies of Muhammad. Unfortunately, Islam wins. The Islamic fighters won eventually. Early on, though, it did not go particularly well. The Vikings crushed Lisbon and burned much of it to the ground. Then for a month they rampaged their way through Portugal, slaughtering the men, and forcing the women and children into slaves. The tide of the battle turned, though, when the Islamic army started using war engines. Once reinforcements and equipment came from their capital, Cordoba, they actually stood a chance. They got vengeful, they took no prisoners, they burned the Viking ships and everything they owned, and every Viking they could get on their hands was killed. Number 1.
A Roman Empire versus a killer whale.
Yeah. Okay, this fight probably never even occurred to anyone, but it happened, indeed. In the writings of the Roman philosopher Pliny the Elder, he records seeing something incredible. An orca was actually seen in the harbor in Astor, locked in combat with an Emperor Claudius. A ship had capsized and filled the harbor with leather hides. The leather lured in hungry Lael, who got stuck in the shallows and caused havoc by splashing about. Claudius decided that this was an opportunity for one hell of a show, so he invited the whole Roman public to watch him fight a whale. The Romans won. Claudius did not play fair, of course. He brought out a whole crew of ships and surrounded the whale to ensure they did not get killed by an animal in front of the crowd. And then the Romans did a lot worse than what you expect. The calmer whale blew water out of its spout and overturned a boat, sinking it and everyone on board. After that, every Roman on every boat just started hurling lances and spears at it. They killed the whale. It was hardly the one-on-one fight the public was promised. And if you were counting casualties, the whale won. Alright guys, that's it. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and see you guys next time in another awesome